Nation. Welcome to the Road to Muni podcast. And we are about to flip the calendar into February, which is basically the last 5 weeks of the regular season here coming up. And this is when you want to start seeing teams playing their best basketball. And I think we have some teams that are starting to play their best basketball. Now it's just about not reaching your peak, right here in the first week of February, but maintaining that all the way through February. And Coach, as we talked a little bit about off air, I mean, games and intensity are starting to increase, and we saw a lot of overtime games last night, including two triple overtime games in the GSEC.
Yeah. Nothing like basketball getting close to February. It's it's that time of year. We've kicked the can a little bit on saying, you need to, you got time. It's go time now. When that calendar flips to February, you want to really be dialed into who you are as a team, what you're all about, have an identity established. And really at this point, it's just fine tuning, executing, and staying healthy. And you really want to be playing your best basketball right now. This is crunch time. So time to get going if you haven't. So
yeah, and I think if you look at the top few teams here in the NEI top 25, and we'll have a new poll coming out again this week, but none of these teams are going to change. But you got a Grace team that we're going to talk to Coach Moore here in a little bit, but we got a chance to catch up with him earlier in the week. But we're going to, our viewers will be able to see that interview here coming up. But they had probably a week that they maybe needed. They're rolling a little bit, and then they got to play two close games in which they had to come from behind. And I think those games are probably pretty good for them just to be able to be tested a little bit. And obviously Bethel's really good, and Marion's really, really good too. I made a social media post, and I'll update you because I know you're not on social media. But Marion's just at 4-6 in the Crossroads League, and that isn't absurd because of how good they actually are. So right. I made a post about how good the Crossroads League is for a Marion team to be at 4-6. But circling back to Grace a little bit, I mean, those two games, to come back from, and I still think they play good basketball, but just being tested, I think is very good for them coming down the stretch here.
Yeah. I mean, there's several leagues where teams are really well prepared when the postseason comes around. That's certainly one of them. There are a few leagues that are pretty top heavy, so some teams have some night off. But I think that Crossroads League is one where just by way of scheduling, you're going to end up with 4, 5, 6 top 25 games, sometimes all back to back, and even the teams that aren't in the top 25 are really good basketball teams. So it's all about execution in that league for sure. But it's good that Grace continues to roll, though. They keep finding ways to win.
Yeah, and then obviously a really good, really balanced, really talented team there. And then you go down to number 2, Langston, who I want to preface this by saying I think the Sooner Athletic Conference is really good. Maybe not as deep as some others, but the top end of that league is very good. And what Langston is doing to that league is making it very, very difficult, I think, on Raiders to maybe know how good the league is. But just to review their last 5 games here, they last night had a 49-point win over John Brown. They had a 38-point win over Oklahoma City. They had a 23-point win over Wayland Baptist. They had a 43-point win over OPSU, and then they had a 49-point win over Science and Arts. And those are just their last 5 games, which is just absurd. They're playing some really good basketball right now. I think that we've talked about it, that a very talented team. I mean, they got several transfers that came in this year, and they're starting to really click on both ends of the floor, which is when you start to get into tournament time, I think you got to be playing really good defense, and they're doing that.
Yeah, defense travels in the postseason, and I could be wrong. I got to go back and look, but I've been watching their scores. I don't think they've given up 70. I think only one time somebody scored 70 on them the entire season, which let me know if you want to go play Langston right now. Who wants them in the first round? Can I have any takers out there, Junior? I don't think I'm seeing too many hands go up. I don't think anybody wants them in any round right now. That team is really clicking on all cylinders. They make it next to impossible to score, and now they're really clicking offensively. So, yeah, that is a national title contender, no doubt, sitting over there in Langston.
them and Grace are the only undefeated teams left in the country, and I
Yeah,
believe at all levels there's only like three total teams maybe that are undefeated. So kind of cool to have two of them in the NEI
hard to
level, and
do.
yeah, and a lot of fun to watch. And I know that you know for us, we'd love to watch a Grace Langston matchup. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't.
Yeah,
I feel like we always talk about these coming up into the tournament times when you get you get. I think we have more than two really good teams, but when you have two undefeated teams like this, you kind of hope they match up in the tournament. And you get to see them somewhere, but
yeah,
it seems like it never plays out like that either. So
yeah. No, I think we got to think about doing an AI hoops report challenge in scheduling at some point down the road, and throw the gauntlet down here right now and said, I'd love to see those two guys get on the phone. They've already got their schedules figured out for next year, but little tip-off classic. I'm going to throw the gauntlet down and say I want to see a Grace Langston neutral site matchup come next November. So you guys go ahead and get together, coaches, and figure that out.
maybe if they don't get to play each other in the tournament, maybe we'll schedule like an exhibition postseason matchup just to be able to get that match.
We'll throw in some post-game pizzas in the contract and call it good.
Yeah,
So
only 10 of them though. We can't do more than that. So
that's right. No. $5 special at Domino's. Here we go.
Yeah, but no, and then looking around, I mean, I think College of Idaho is starting to come into form as well. They for whatever reason struggled a little bit at the beginning of the year, lost a couple. I say struggle, but they lost a couple. I think you say struggle because of what they did last year, running the table after the first losing their first game of the year, and then they ran the table after that to their national championship. I think that they are back in form, looking really, really good, playing really good basketball. They got their defense locked in again. And we saw that as they had another big win this weekend against number 24 Oregon Tech. But yeah, I think even if you threw the top five teams in the country right now with Oklahoma Wesleyan and Indiana Wesleyan rounding up that top five, I think that's probably and you maybe even put Grace and Langston in their own tier, but I think that first five for sure, are the top tier right now in the NEI, and I think that's where you kind of when you're looking for your favorites to win a national title, I think that those five for sure deserve it.
Yeah. And I know College Idaho is it's a really interesting matchup, I think, this week with LC State, right? We haven't been talking about them a ton, but they've passed Oregon Tech now. They're sitting in second in that league. And they've quietly, second, I think they're actually tied, right? For first. And so that matchup's coming up this week, and I'm probably going to hit that later on. But that's a big game this time of year, right? And LC State has sort of said, hey, knock, knock, we're still here. And, they're coming up strong, but not a team that we've really talked about a ton, at least on the show. So,
yeah, and Austin Johnson does such a good job. I mean, obviously he's been, I believe, national coach of the year, and I know he led his LC State team to a championship game just about 3 years ago, maybe, and so he does a good job. He's a really good coach, and I mean that league will be interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Wesleyan, Indiana Wesleyan's interesting. I mean, they've won a lot of close games, right?
Yep.
I mean, and so sometimes we've talked about this, I think, before too, right? Most teams are going to win about a third of their games. Most teams are going to lose about a third, and it's that middle third of your games that really determine the shape of your season sometimes. And I think Wesleyan falls in that category, right? They found ways to win close games, 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, overtimes, whatever it is, and they keep racking up the wins. So, that really is, those close games have really tilted the scales in their favor to hold their position where they're at.
Yeah, and I know that we got our first ARC rankings that came out this week, and I know we've talked about the fact that these matter a little bit more than say the top 25 does, and I think we could see it last year. We had some teams in the top 25 going into the tournament that weren't as high in their ARCs, and then their seeding reflected it. So that's why when we talk about ARCs and how much that matters, and you're seeing a team, even in the RPI, when you look at someone, there was a big time game last night with Freed Hardeman and Cumberland, who's 6 and 7 in the rankings, but 3rd and 4th in the RPIs, and that I say all this to preface that this Great Lakes South ARC is just absolutely loaded when you talk about teams, and You got to think that they'll get probably 15 or 16 teams in from that arc. But because you have the Grace, and then you have the Indiana Wesleyan, you have Freed Hardeman, Georgetown, Cumberland's. I mean, you have 5 top 10 teams in the country just in that arc alone. So as we get going and wrap up around these last few episodes here, going into our national tournament preview, you're going to hear a lot more ARC talk, and that's why, is because ARC is probably it is more important than the top 25 is at this point of the year.
Yeah, I was going to say there's only one ranking that matters in NAI basketball, and it's the final ARC ranking. All the other ones are just conversation. The only ranking that matters in all of NAI basketball is the final ARC ranking. So all teams, top 25 is nice. It's an interesting topic of conversation, but at the end of the day, it's irrelevant when it comes to selection for the most part. So, yeah, I mean, there's some interesting things in that first ARC ranking. I think, we've talked about it a little bit, but there's sometimes people overreact to what's listed in that first ARC ranking. And the bottom line is, there's still 3-4 weeks left here in the regular season, all that, and there's some more ARC rankings coming out. It'll work itself out. And I think if we take a snapshot of what it is today versus what it is on the final day, it's going to iron itself out. There's some obvious number 1 lines, number 2 lines, things like that in each one, but there's going to be a lot of fluidity in that 2 through 10 line in every single arc as we move through the end of the year. So just encourage people to watch that. It's fun to watch, and having been in those conversations as an ARC grader, it's fun to be in those conversations too. And it's interesting, having sat in that seat, to watch it iron itself out, even when you don't think it's like, oh, how are we gonna? Well, it'll work itself out. You don't need to really do much about it. Teams will play their way in or play their way out. It's just how it goes.
Yeah, and I think that's so true, because you look at and I know Coach Moore mentioned it too and when we get to that interview, you guys will understand what I'm saying. But we're so deep in the NEI right now, and I think that's partly because when you combine 2 divisions, even though we're in our 4th year of that now, you started getting to the point where you had 2 top 25s prior to that, and you combine that, but then you also have teams that are now starting to figure out what it takes to win, a national title or to get to a national tournament. And so you're starting to see teams build a little bit differently, or some of those kids that were freshmen when we first joined are now seniors. So they're starting to see deeper and deeper teams across the NEI. I think that the back ends of each league are not even the back ends. When I say back ends, I mean like back ends of like the teams that maybe possibly bubble teams. As you go across the NEI, if I get questions all the time about like what puts us on a bubble, or what where it goes. Well, your ARC rating is the most important thing. So if you can get some ARC wins by winning conference games, that's great. That's the best way to climb. But outside of that, it's just you got to continue playing good basketball. And then I know for a lot of teams, even it's not much different than the NCAA tournament, where you may even have to get a win or 2 in the conference tournament to boost your resume up to get into into an at-large selection talk.
Yeah. The bottom line is win games.
Yeah.
Right. That's. I think the longer I coach, the more I realize that the rest of it's kind of nonsense. You just win games and you'll be in pretty good shape. Find your way. It's easy to say, but if you can, in the NAI world, if you can get 23, 24 wins, 22 wins, you're going to probably secure your spot now with a 60-14 team field. I mean, that is what it is. So where you're seated, who you play, there's only 7 people that decide that, right? Or whatever the committee size is, they'll tell you that. But you don't control a whole lot when it comes to where you fall with that. It's really all about just trying to maximize what you have on your roster. Win the games you're supposed to win. Win as many of the ones that are toss-ups that you can, and see where the chips fall. And then postseason play is so much about matchups and health, and there's a lot of variables that come into winning a title. So concentrate on what you can control. Yeah, including luck. Yeah, right. So you never know when a 75-footer is going to get banged in, right? So just it's a lot of it is uncontrollable. So just keeping your guys focused on what you can control, and I'm sure every coach is preaching that same message right now. And I tell you what, yeah, I look at that ARC ranking and I'm just looking deep in each region. I'm like, oh, that's a really good number 8. That's a dang good number 9. Like these are really good teams and really good coaches. It's fun how many of those are at this level. So
Yeah, and I'll just go ahead and tell you. I mean, we've had in fun talks. Nobody's serious, but when we post our brackets, you get a lot of people, a lot of coaches that come back and they're like, "Man, our region's so tough." I'm like, I know, but like, where do you put
whose
people?
isn't?
Like, where do you put people? Because
Yeah.
like you just said, like those poor 1 seeds. When you see some of the 8-9s that they're going to be matched up with against, I mean, it's not going to be a very happy quad because some of those 8-9 seeds are going to be very good, and obviously the 8-9s, the winner will play the probably the one unless there's upset, 16-1 upset, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look all the way up and down. I mean, I think this is as deep of a tournament as we're going to have, tournament field as we've had, just as far as quality teams. And I'm not saying that I do think there's a select group that are probably the favorites to win it, but that's not to say that some of those mid-tier teams can't go throw some upsets here and make a deep run.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I don't think anybody's going to dial up their opening quad and say, oh, yeah, we got this. We'll see in Muni. Right. It's not going to work that way this year. There is a lot of, I think this year we're going to see a lot of, seeded upsets, and whether that seeding is perfectly accurate or not can always be argued. But I think based on the numbers, I'd project we're going to see a lot of upsets in those opening rounds. But what does upset mean when you get to the get to the field that we're talking about? I think it'll just be really interesting. It's going to be a really fun tournament, and it's going to be hats off to all those teams that can scrap their way in because it's super competitive. I mean, you look at some of the leagues too, and they're just beating each other up, and you got all the like you said. I mean, Marion. Some of those leagues we've talked about the Sun a little bit. I mean, those teams just keep beating each other up. And, it's like one game separating second and seventh or something like that in that league. It's just, and there's other leagues like that too. It's just really, really fun to watch. So be a lot of great matchups coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of those matchups, I know we've had a great segment, and I appreciate you doing the coaches' corner this season. It's always fun to highlight some games, and we've kind of elected to not just scrap it because we do like but that's probably a bad word, as scrap. But we thought it was more important to do some more coaching interviews. So you're going to see a couple, probably 2 coaches interviews at least minimum for all these episodes, and I know we have. Dennis Hopson from Lourdes and Scott Moore from Grace coming on, 2 top 10 coaches at the moment who are going to be on with us today, and that's a good transition, I think, into our coaches conversations. We're going to start off with Grace head coach Scott Moore. Joining us today on our coaches conversation is Grace head coach Scott Moore. Coach, I know you've been on us with the last couple of years. I always joke this year we're finally doing a visual so everybody can see your pretty face now. You guys are off to a 19-0 start to the season. Obviously, number 1 in the country as well. Congrats on a big start to the year, and welcome to the show.
Well, first off, with the video, you can always tell where coaches coach at from a geographic location. Because I'm sitting here, I'm watching Copeland come on, and he's got his bright red face, and he's looking all sun-kissed, and Teichman's looking the same, and you got me and Lubbers here about as white as can be. You can tell we're Midwestern guys. So yeah, the video's been fun, man. It's been awesome. Just following along, and I can't believe we're almost 20 games into this thing. I just talked to the guys. We got 2 months, 60 days left, and this whole thing is over. So, yeah, man, it's moving along. We're in crunch time. It's January, February, so here we are.
Yeah, and I mentioned 19-0, and we're recording a little bit before your Marion game. So when this airs, it'll be after the Marion game. So just to cycle back to the top 25 showdown from this week with big rival Bethel for you guys. You want to talk about that game a little bit? I know it's something that Coach Lubbers and I talk about all the time. Nobody plays a perfect 40 minutes for every game all year round, but the best teams find ways to win, and that's something that you guys certainly did with when you guys got down, I think 21 at one point or 20 at one point. and then came back and beat Bethel on the road.
Yeah, I think the first thing is the atmosphere was incredible. See, when I was playing, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, Bethel was one of the premier, if not the premier, NAI basketball team in Division II, and just so many stars. And then you had the Coach Kessler and the Mike Lightfoot thing, and so I was a part of that. And when I got coaching, the rivalry was still there in my heart. But to be honest with you guys, it didn't feel – it was just different. It was – all the names have kind of passed, and I'm talking to my team about the how big the game is, and they're looking at me going like, well, so is the Goshen game, so is the Huntington game, so is the Wet, and they just didn't understand it. So the crowd was incredible. It felt like I was back as a player in 2006, trying to go up to the gates and just get a victory. So. Yeah, it was not a good game early on. They kind of kicked our butt. They're a really good basketball team. They always say one of the best players in the country, and Drew Lutz, and they've got guys to go along with him. And I think what Steve has done now is he's kind of got his identity going a little bit in this whatever year. I think he's year maybe 5 with me, but it's just a good win at this point. Any conference game, and any conference game on the road, regardless of November or February. Yeah, I mean. They're all going to be tough. So just I was proud. I was proud that we just kind of hung tight and made enough plays at the end. And, this is going to sound odd, but after the game on the bus ride home, I honestly didn't – the winning and losing the game, 10 years ago, I would have been pumped that we won that game. I mean, seriously, I would have been like, look, we figured it out. I don't care if we played crappy or they were better here. We won the game. And I think it's the first time in my career where I'm riding home from Mishawaka on a bus and we won a game. And I think I would have felt the same exact way had they beat us. And, I got in the locker room the next day and we're doing film, and, the mood it's changed a little bit of like, hey, whether we won this game or lost this game, dude, we got to get better, and we got to find ways to continue to get better. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think my priorities and has changed a little bit here the last couple of years, especially this year. It's about how you play, man. It's about how you play and how you take care of business. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you're okay with the result.
Yeah, and just kind of going through that game a little bit too. As we see when you get into conference play, both teams were well scouted, and I thought that both teams did a really good job of taking away. For you guys, they're so well balanced, but obviously Elijah Malone, even with a double-double, they were double or triple teaming him, throwing some stuff at him. You guys were doing some stuff to try to take Lutz out of rhythm a little bit, and I think that it just shows the power of your guys' team about how deep you guys are, and the kind of maybe the backside of that is that with Elijah, most of us, I think, that watch games know that Elijah is one of the best players in the country, if not the best player in the country. But when you look at it stat wise, it kind of gets some buried just because you guys are so balanced. How do you kind of offset that with Elijah and maybe, I'm sure for him, a national title is more important than maybe player of the year, but maybe throw out a pitch for Elijah here on why you think he's national player of the year.
Well, first of all, you got to understand too is to have a kid that's that talented and to give up what he gives up to win basketball games. It's just not. It's not common. It's not common today. It wasn't common 20 years ago. But I mean, he is a big time. The most talented kid that I've had, and I've been doing this for 15 years. And he's a loyal kid. 2 years ago, he could have walked out of our program. And, last year, he had 6 or 7 offers. And the way that the world works today with the transfer portal. And we sat down and we said, hey, man, my job as your basketball coach, when I signed up for this, it's to do whatever the best thing is for my kids. And if you want to go, if that's the best thing for you, then, dude, I'm going to support you. I'm not going to handcuff you. And I remember him sitting in my office and just looking at me like I was crazy, going, well, why? Why would I want to leave these guys? And I'm like, look, man, you just won me a lot more games, which I'm pumped about. But that loyalty, man, is just what makes him special. And I think that anyone who understands the game of basketball knows that if you just watch him, like, it's not that he can't play 35 minutes. Heck, we had to play him in the Bethel game 33, 34, and he can do that. He's in shape to do that. But I think to take a hit on a kid who, hey, we're up in this game by 26 with 11 minutes to go, and I've got Ian Scott, who I also think has a chance to be a Crossroads Player of the Year candidate next year. Like, we're trying to figure out, like, what's our end goal, right? Is it for me to get Elijah 28 and 14? Because if you watch him, he's good enough to do that. But it's not. It's not, and we've stayed true to that. And if I need to lean on him for 30-plus, he's going to be there. If we don't, that's just been the benefit of our team. And whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, it's who we are. People ask me, why do you play 10 guys? And my answer is pretty simple. It's because I have 10 guys. Trust me, I don't go into a game saying, well, I got to get everybody time. And you know how hard it is to play 8 guys, Kevin, right? 7 guys, and everybody wants to play more. But, we just have the luxury of being able to do that. And I think at the end of the day, they like winning more than they like scoring 15 points, 18 points, playing 20 minutes, playing 30 minutes. I tell them a lot. There's a lot of guys that average 18 to 20 that nobody talks about, guys. And you can go be that. But if you're going to be here, it may look a little different. So for whatever reason, they drank the Kool-Aid, and I've been fortunate to be able to play a lot of those guys.
It's funny, too, and we've talked about this before, too, Coach, like the relationship component to stuff that happens away from the court. I know how integral that is into what you do at Grace, and certainly there's other programs that do that well, but I think you guys do it really, really well in terms of just not just the relationship between the player and the coach, but the relationship thread between all the guys on the team and some of the expectations and standards that are in place. That thread helps keep people there, right? When stuff does come up, when shiny objects come along, they realize, hey, it's not half bad where we're at. We got a pretty good thing going here. And in particular, when you're adding in some of the other ingredients you guys have as a program. And I remember thinking in the transfer portal, right, the biggest thing you ever hear when you talk to somebody that's in there is, well, my relationship with my coach is no good, right? That's like the number one thing you hear from kids that are leaving is, my coach told me this and then that happened. Or, I got there and they said it was going to be this and then it was that, right? But I think the strength of the way that you guys do relationships and recruiting certainly impacts the retention as well, right? We've talked about that. So talk maybe a little bit about, I'm transfer X or I'm high school kid X, and I'm thinking about, hey, Grace basketball might make sense for me, and it seems like you're pretty interested. What is it that would attract me to want to come to Grace? Why would I want to come be a part of what you got going on, other than the wins and losses?
Yeah, it's got to be. I think it has to be more than just hoops, because at some point, we're all going to be disappointed. If it's just basketball, you know this, I know this, like, you're going to have some sleepless nights. I heard, I think it was Tony Bennett say one time, like, I'm okay with the outcome. I've prepared for the result. And I've gotten to that point as well, where you're trying to preach it to these kids, where, like, guys, the outcome of what we're trying to do, like, doesn't mean that we don't have goals. Doesn't mean that we're not trying to win every single game we play. I'm the most competitive coach you'll find, just like anybody else. However, I'm okay with the outcome, and I've prepared for it. And the pitch is often now, Kev, you and I have talked about this. Like, I like basketball. I really do. I've grown up in it. I'm an Indiana high school basketball guy. Like, we were a Hoosiers guy. Like, all that stuff that you read about, I am, whatever. I don't love basketball. I love people. I love my guys. I love the age. I love 18 to 22. I love the development where that comes into play. And, I heard someone say one time, like, what do you coach? And my answer was always, I coach basketball. And I learned pretty quickly, like, no, I don't. I teach basketball and I coach people. I coach human beings, and I teach the game of basketball, but coaching basketball and coaching people are completely different things. And that's what we try to sell. I think we're a little bit more meticulous on recruiting. We've been fortunate enough where a couple of years ago, we didn't lose a single. We had 100% return, right? No one graduated, no one left. And then the second year, we had one guy graduate and no one left. And so a lot of these guys have kind of grown up with me for these last 3 or 4 years. But once you have that, once you have a locker room, I think you start to listen to yourself preach all the time. And you go, man, I need to listen to what I'm trying to say to these kids because this is a real thing. So I don't want to screw this up. I want to make sure that the kid I do recruit, the kid who I'm trying to pitch grace, look, there's no magic tricks. There is a ton of good programs, great coaches, cool facilities. Like, we just pitch who we are. If you want to come here, here's why I believe you would be a good fit. And I've been much more, okay with some of the best recruits are the guys we don't get, Kevin Jr. Like,
Yeah.
You know that, right? And I'm not saying it, but there's a reason why that hasn't worked out and something has. And it's there's no magic tricks. This is who we are. This is who I am. I tell the parents every single year, day one, I'll promise you one thing. I'll love your kid. And that is it. I don't promise they're going to play. I don't promise they're going to start. I promise you when they come in August, they're not going to sit there and go, this is nothing like I was told 5, 6, 8, 10 months ago. Like, this is nothing what I signed up for. It's exactly what you signed up for because we are who we are, and if that's what you want. And we've been fortunate enough we've gotten really good players on top of that. Like, let's be honest, these kids, they're not just good kids. Like, these kids can hoop. The Gibbs twins can hoop. With Jake Watt and Ian Scott, Carter Stoltzfus is just a warrior, man. And my freshmen, I got 2 freshmen right now that are really good. And I'm sitting there and I look at the stat sheet and they're played 5 minutes and played 4 minutes. And I'm going, I got to get them in the game. Like, I'm crazy for not playing these guys. But you have 8 other guys that are really good. So, but they don't care. They love winning. And at some point they know that my time's coming. But we're going to enjoy it while we got it. So, yeah, that's what I pitch. Again, I don't know if it always works, but at least I know that I feel I can sleep at night knowing this is who we are.
Yeah, it's a hard transition out of that. I feel like we should just end clip. It was so well said there. It was I always could listen to that stuff all day long. But transitioning a little bit out to you do a lot with ARC stuff, and I think that maybe this is a good spot for us as we kind of close out the next month. We're going to be talking a lot more and getting into ARC and SO, strength of schedule, RPI, stuff like that. You want to maybe not only talk about your positioning and stuff like that, and how you guys look as an ARC Raider, but then as well as the Great Lakes South ARC, which if you look up and down that rating, you have 5 teams in the top 10 in the country, and a couple more in the top 25, and several more that certainly, as maybe that 20 to 50 range is, I think, as you said off air, is very, very good too. So one of the best ARCs, if not the best ARC. You want to kind of maybe describe it a little bit and then how you guys come about that?
Well, just like anything, it's getting better, right? We're in I don't know what year we're in now, 4 maybe, with this whole process of Division I now just having one league. And I think what you've seen is some coaches have done a really good job. I can throw out like a St. Francis, for example. A team like St. Francis, you're already going to know how strong your strength of schedule or RPI could be based on the league you play in. Typically from year to year, if you have a stronger league or if you have a weaker league, you can kind of have a sense. So I think what it did is the NAI came back and said, hey, you're going to need to go out and you're going to have to schedule those non-conference games the way the NCAA takes a look at those. And I think this year, more than last year even, we've started to put a little bit more emphasis on, hey, here's the criteria. This is what you're giving us. This is the primary criteria. Now we need to select those teams that fit that criteria. And so it's really interesting because, St. Francis had a couple bumps. They had some injuries there. They had some guys. They're still playing without guys. They're sitting at, 11-8 or something like that overall. But you take a look at their metrics, and their RPI is 30 and their strength of schedule is 8. And it's only going to get better because they're still playing league games, right? They're going to play us. They're going to play Wesleyan, Huntington, Bethel. So they could very well end the year with a top 5 to 7 strength of schedule and an RPI in the top 30 and be 16-12 or 17-12. And so the hard part's going to be like, where do you take a team like that and where do you compare them to a team that, again, is maybe the third place team or the fourth place team in another league who shows up with an RPI of 90 and a strength of schedule of 202. And I do think as Raiders, you're starting to see much more conversation of, hey, we are going to reward those teams that are actively trying to have great metrics is what they're saying. Now, it's not perfect, right? There are going to be teams that are left out. I told you this to start. Dude, the national poll, I'm on the national poll. I get to like 12, and I'm like, I could start pulling names out of a hat for the next 40 teams. And everybody gets mad, and everybody, I told my assistant, I'm just glad that we're number 1 right now, just simply for the fact that I wouldn't know where to put us in the mix of 10 to 50 if we were a middle team here. So there's so many good teams, there's so many good programs, players, and coaches that I do think you'll start to see. It'll start to work itself out a little bit here, but those metrics are going to matter, and teams are going to be frustrated at the end of the year. But what they can't go back to is they can't say, hey, we did or we didn't do anything we could to get our team in the best position to be successful. That's what we have to do now.
Yeah, we talk about that often, or we've made mention of that, right? People are it works itself out. This first one that comes out, sometimes there's this, I remember being in your seat too, Coach, there's this over dramatic reaction to the first one, and the first one almost is irrelevant. It's just mud on the wall based on some decent guessing, right, from what you're watching. And then it's a starting point, right? And then it's a massage process from there to the end of the season to say, hey, let's try to get this thing as good as we can get it, to equip the selection committee with a piece of information to make their decisions, right? I mean, that's really the ARC rating system is let's try to get it as close to good as we can, and then give it to the people that are going to slot the teams and see what happens. But I think people's, as you watch that, I just encourage people that are listening to this or thinking about that process or tied to a specific school, just let it play out, right? Cheer for your teams. If your team wins, you're going to be just fine. And if, you'll play your way in or you'll play your way out. But putting too much emotional energy around this first one doesn't always make sense.
And it's not a perfect system. I think when you get to the NAIA level, some of us are limited in what we can do travel and, geographically, where it is hard because you could say pretty simple, like if you're in a conference that's not as strong, then okay, well, do whatever you can and just go play powerhouse teams in your non-con and at least show that if you're going to win the league, you played a really strong strength of schedule. Well, that's easy to say that, but when the AD is signing off on your bus trips or the president's signing off, you may not have that luxury to go 11 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours. Like you may not be able to do that. So it's some serious discussion. The guy, I don't envy everybody who's in that final decision of we got to pick. Usually it's about 4 or 5 teams there. We're trying to get the 64th team. It's probably brutal, but those guys do such a good job, man. And I don't think nobody's trying to screw anybody over. I think they try to do their best that they can get the best 64 teams in. And then honestly, like anything else, it always plays out. You get to Kansas City, there's nobody that's left in Kansas City that shouldn't be there. That's not a good or really a great team. I mean, you could say there's no non-top 25, 30 teams left in Kansas City. They're all
nobody's there on accident.
Nobody, not at that point.
No, and it's part of. I mean, going back to what you guys both said. I mean, I think we said 2-3 episodes ago that you could have a 200 team tournament. 201 would be mad, So there really is no right or wrong. I mean, you're always going to have somebody left out, but it is a fun process. It's a fun tournament. It's the NEI national tournament's changed a little bit, where only 16 teams at Muni instead of. I mean, I know that we had 2 divisions, so not just municipal, but in Kansas City now only 16 instead of 32. I know there's been some talk to maybe move that to 32. Hopefully, one day we'll get back there, because I do think that was what made the NEI tournament unique, was the having to win 5 games in 4 days. But at the same time, it's still a fun format, a fun tournament, and no matter who the field of 64 teams are, it's going to be a really well ran and really competitive tournament as well.
Yeah, we made that pitch, and I put a proposal together for the final 32, and I think it was more just thinking about my experience as a player. And when I walked into Branson, Missouri, and there were 32 teams, and obviously we didn't have the social media stuff. But like when you walk in and you see Adam Hepker's name on the back of a jersey, and I've read about Adam Hepker, I know who he is, but I've never seen him or met him, and here his Mid-American NAS team is, right? Like that's something that's pretty special. And so my process, and I got with some coaches and just kind of talked about their opinion on it, is I think what it also does is geographically here, especially where teams are at, we're losing some programs right on the East Coast. Obviously the West Coast, a lot of those have gone Division II. It's always kind of a scary thing to talk about as these teams start to transition out of the NAI or go D2 or D3 or whatever. So I always thought, well, you could still do the pods and you could still do the 16 sites with 4 teams. But I believe it would be so much better if we took 2 teams from each of those 16 sites, because now, like, I could bring in, my arc in general, Georgetown, Cumberland, Bethel, Wesleyan. We're going to get 15 teams probably from our Great Lakes in the tournament. The problem is, guess who most of us play during the year? Like, those teams, we have the luxury of, we've got a lot of conferences within 2.5, 3.5 hours. So we play those teams. Well, you ask any other team, like, you don't want to play Olivet Naz for a second time just to get to Kansas City when you've already played them in non-conference, or Indiana Tech. So I love the idea of, like, hey, I'm a top seed, bring Wesleyan, they can play in the other game. We may not even be on the same bracket, but whoever wins those 2 teams is going to Kansas City. We get back to the 32 teams. You get more people, you get more fans, you get more money generated. I tried to do, hey, logistically, what would it look like financially for the NEI to do that? And again, I think there is some movement. I think we got to be a little smarter. Probably someone smarter than me needs to help me and kind of put it together. I'm more of an idea, and hey, someone else will figure it out, because I'm not that
You're
smart.
Not the COO. You're the visionary.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's funny too. I mean,
it could be coming. I hope it's something that isn't just buried. I hope it's something we continue to talk about every year, and hopefully one day we can get back to that.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember the D2 world too was always so miserable with that, right? Because it's like what the heck? I mean, they only take 8 teams, and to get to there, you might play 2 conference games, to get to the final 8. It's always just, I get it, sort of, but not really. I think it's there's ways to be creative with it, and I think the cool thing that I've always experienced in NAI too, that's one of the separators, is most people, not everybody, but most people that have their fingerprints on what's going on really do care about making it as quality as you can possibly make it. Your AD is a great example of that. I mean, Chad's just always trying to make things as good as they can possibly be, at least from my experience, right? But it's just a reflection. There's so many quality human beings in the NAI that are just trying to make it as good as possible and contribute and serve and encourage what's going on. That's the beauty of the level from my perspective, is just trying to give kids a quality experience. And so people are open to ideas. They're willing to debate them. Yeah, they don't always work out overnight, but people are willing to start the process and, get out on the skinny branch and share ideas. And if it works out and it makes the game better, great. And if it doesn't, great. We at least talked about it and said we tried, right? So I think that's one of the cool things about the NAI level, and that's what I love about it.
And they're trying. It always, you do have to remember, financially is always going to be a topic of discussion.
Yeah.
It's always going to go back to that. And if you take yourself out of the coaching seat and put it into an administrative seat, you understand, like, that makes sense. Like, we got to have schools to be able to have athletic departments, to be able to have basketball teams, for me to have a profession. So it all trickles down. I do know that, it's not because people don't care. It is
no way.
special.
Yeah.
It's a special level. And whether I'm here for 40 years or 2 years, it'll remain that to my heart for sure.
Well, and I'll just throw it out here. I mean, I know that those games that go into midnight in Kansas City are sometimes rough, but I'm here for it. I'll do what I need to do. If I need to run a score clock, if I need to run a scorebook, whatever I need to do. So, no, I know.
Better be careful once you start
I can't.
offering.
I'll nominate Junior. I'll support you. I'll nominate you, but there's not enough coffee in Kansas City to keep me awake till midnight. So,
no, I know. I better zip it up on that one. But no, it's a lot of fun. Hopefully, we'll see if we can get some movement on it. But always. Either way, the format's fun. It's an awesome. Even when 16 teams are there, it's a lot of fun to watch. But Coach, I know you got to get running, so we won't keep you. But I know you're kind of rounding the corner into the second half of Crossroads League play, and not a lot of easy games from here on out. So we wish you guys the best of luck, and I hope you guys can keep the train rolling here.
Yeah, man. Hey, when is one of my players going to get on your graphics or those fancy Player of the Week nominations?
It requires a size large sent to Colorado, and then it's amazing what happens.
You keep talking about all these guys I got. I can't even get the NAI Hoops report to give my guys the Player of the Week award, man. Come on now.
Yeah, well, when you guys got guys getting triple doubles and 52-point games, and
that game was nuts. That kid is really good, man. He's so
good.
Hey,
and I laugh. Part of that is there is a lot of talent in our
my goodness.
And it's awesome. It is so awesome to see. It's so awesome to see the level of coaches. I was reading about, and I knew Kyle was kind of doing what he was doing at Shreveport there because I talked to him previously. But like that to me is awesome. Like, and I'm not bashing the big time because those people are great. Matt Painter's great at what he does and so forth, and they deal with other things that we don't. But like, find me a guy that's doing that, right? Find me a guy that's seriously doing the laundry, doing this. Like, I love how invested these coaches and kids are. And man, oh man, it's just, you look to your left and your right, and I'm watching games going, these guys just did. When I played, and it wasn't that long ago, like, I don't remember anybody in Branson, Missouri, like, looking like these dudes.
No,
my team, I seriously, I'm not even sure if I could. I laughed. I told my assistants this. I don't know if I probably wouldn't even have recruited myself to play on my team now, because I don't think I would have been able to see the floor, literally. But it's just awesome. There's so many good players, so many good coaches, and man, I'm so blessed to just be a part of it, and I appreciate what you guys do, because I do think NAI basketball now is being talked about more than it ever has, and I think you guys have a lot to do with that.
Appreciate that, man.
That's Junior getting it done, man. Working your tail off to make it happen. It's fun to see, and yeah, I'm loving that we can all contribute to what you've been doing, Junior, for so many years, and really working hard at it. It's fun to be able to contribute to it in any way.
A lot of people. I know off the air I talked about Jake earlier, but a lot of people all the way from interns from the start to coaches that originally started to have the idea, and I just kind of ran with it. But I appreciate you guys' kind words. I don't want to run with this for too long, but I do appreciate the kind words. And as we've always talked about, this has always been about NAI basketball and getting more people, to talk about it. So when Coach Moore sit here and the number one team in the country is saying that it's helping out, it means a lot. So hopefully we can keep rolling with it. I'm excited about some of our national tournament coverage coming up, and I know that the Grace Lancers will probably be in a lot of those conversations from here on out. So, Coach, best of luck to you guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Take care, buddy.
Always good talking to Coach Moore. Grace is loaded, as we've talked about, going into another top 10 team who I think is also really, really loaded. And then we're going to move into our coach conversation with Lourdes head coach. Today is for our coaches conversation is Lourdes number 10 Lourdes head coach Dennis Hopson. Coach, off to a 17-1 start, currently in the number 10 in the country with a new ranking coming out this week. Congrats, great start to the season, and welcome to the Road to Muni podcast.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you guys obviously, you're in your fifth season here, and kind of had the Grey Wolves going since year one, and I know you got a pretty good playing pedigree as well, playing in the NBA and all that. But also, just to want to touch base, you've worked for two really, really big time coaches, and Raleigh Massimino and Louis Orr, and you may want to just talk about to get going before we start talking about some Grey Wolf basketball, maybe about what it meant to work for those guys, and even the introduction to the NEI at Northwood.
Yeah, I think it was. I guess let me start by saying, I wanted to get into coaching. I didn't have a desire to coach, and I didn't graduate. I left school early after our last game. We lost to Georgetown State. I quit school to prepare myself for the draft. And after my career was over, trying to do a couple of things, and then I said to myself, I got a lot of information that I can share with these young men today. So I was about a year and 2 quarters away from getting my degree from State. So I actually went back to school and sat in the classroom for a year and 2 quarters, got my degree, and went to a Final Four. State was in the Final Four that year, and I was in line getting my tickets, and I had a chance to talk to Raleigh Massimino and told him that I had just gotten my degree and I wanted to get into coaching. And he told me to give him a call. He might have something for me. And sure enough, I gave him a call. He responded, answered the phone call, and he talked to me about a new program that he was starting at Northwood University. And he was looking for somebody. And flew me in, and we had a great conversation. And he hired me or asked me if I want the job right then. So I've had the great opportunity, one, getting to know him and getting to know what type of person he was in regards to coaching kids, and it was the best. It was the best. He's a family guy. He loves his kids, and he poured into his kids at older ages. And he taught me a whole lot. And he gave me a lot of responsibility as well to learn and to make mistakes. So I was with him for 2 years. And after those 2 years, I was fortunate to get hired by Bowling Green State University, Louis Orr. And Louis was just as great. The thing is that they both had different things that I took from or pulled from. And I'm combining the two now, being a head coach here at Lourdes University. And like you said, the last 5 years that I've been here, it seems to be working out. And we seem to have gotten better every year. And I want to keep this ship sailing.
Yeah, and sailing you are. I mean, currently, like I said, 17-1, sitting atop the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference standings. You guys, we'll start off, just talking about a little bit. You guys are coming off a year where you saw a team in Indiana Tech from your league reach all the way to the national championship game. Obviously the WAC's very, very good. And what's it take for you guys, not just to win the WAC this year, but to also just to how good the league is. It's a battle almost night in, night out for you guys.
I think consistency is the big key. I think right now there's some things we have to get better with, like all teams. But every day, every month, we want to continue to get better. The biggest thing for me is the consistency, knowing exactly what team you're going to get night in, night out. Because, like you said, the WAC is a very competitive team, a competitive league. I'm sorry. And you look at the teams that you just mentioned, along with the Madonnas, the Rochesters, the Lawrence Techs, and other teams in this league. Anybody can beat anybody on any given night. So the big thing is consistency for me, and having the guys understand the importance of competing for 40 plus minutes all the time, not taking breaks, not taking plays off. I think that's very, 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 very crucial when you're talking about competing and being at the top when you talk about the WAC conference, because again, it's a competitive league, and not only because of the players, because you have very, very good coaches as well.
Mm.
These guys, they work at their craft, and they put good product on the floor. And we just want to continue to try to do what we've been doing, and it's not easy, but I pray that we continue to get better night in, night out.
Yeah, and you talk about some of that consistency. I mean, I think Jackie Harris may be as consistent as anybody in the country, but then you also have All-American Joey Holyfield down there. And then you got Sean Monroe, who's playing some good basketball this season as well. And I feel like you guys, you hear a lot about Jackie Harris and Joey Holyfield, and Monroe, like I said, has had a good season. But I think you guys' depth all around is showing up, and that consistency effort that you talk about.
Yeah, I think Joey and Jackie, again, they're veterans. They've been around me for a long time. I've been knowing these kids since they were young, and we're fortunate to have them. And they've been a joy because they do it on and off the court. And the thing is when you talk about those two guys, they don't always necessarily have to be playing their best basketball, because there's been some games this year to where one may have gotten in foul trouble, or both have gotten in foul trouble, or they're just not playing the way that they're capable of playing. And that's when you talk about the Sean Monroes and other guys, if they come off the bench, uh, these guys are more than capable. And Sean is no secret. I think people that know Sean Monroe, or that's Coach Sean Monroe, they know what he's capable of doing. And I love Sean because he plays with a lot of pace, and he's never sped up. He plays with great balance. Um, so again, when you talk about the Jackies, the Joeys, and you can sprinkle in the Sean Monroes, or you can throw Sean Monroe into that conversation, and then you can sprinkle in people like Jaquil Wells, and other complimentary guys that's more than capable coming in the game and doing something good for us, and allowing us to be victorious.
Yeah, and Jaquil's obviously play a lot of good, important basketball his career too, at some at previous locations as well. But you guys, maybe talk about. I know you said you knew Jackie and Joey for a long time. I know you kind of ran some different programs there in Toledo, Ohio, for a while. What does it go in the recruit? I have to ask this question just so I can preface this, because this is a question that my podcast partner always asks. But what attracts people to Lourdes, and when you're out there recruiting on the road, what's the big pitch that draws kids to come play for you?
I think it's in a very competitive league. I think the biggest thing is we can sell the city. We can sell the city of Toledo. There's everything to do here. You got restaurants, you got malls, um, you got University of Toledo on one side of town. You got Bowling Green State University on the south side of town, which is 20 minutes away. But it's a city. You got 200 plus thousand people here. There's a lot to do, unlike some of the other teams that might be located in smaller communities. We can sell a lot when you talk about Toledo, Ohio. Centrally located. If you need to go to Michigan, you can get there in 30 minutes. If you need to go to Columbus, you can get there in 2 hours. Indianapolis, 3.5 hours. Chicago, 3.5 hours. So it's centrally located. And again, I think the biggest thing is you're going to get a quality education uh, from a school like Lourdes University. And it's in Savannah, Ohio, which is a very, very, very prominent suburb. So yeah, again, there's a lot that you can talk about when you're talking about recruiting kids that come here to Lourdes University.
Yeah, and you guys obviously do a good job of recruiting and all that too. But probably doesn't help, or doesn't hurt, I should say, being able to maybe get some skill development from a guy like you who knew how to score the ball at Ohio State, and obviously all-time leading scorer at one point there, and then was a third overall pick in the NBA draft. Do those credentials for you, help draw people in, or do you even use those? Or you just try to sell the university when you're out there?
I'll use whatever it takes, uh, but I want to make sure that I'm being real and I'm being honest to the kids. I think some of the local kids that's on the team, and we've been fortunate to get it done with local kids. Now I don't know if that's going to be sustainable, because you don't get that all the time. You talk about Joey and Jackie; those are Division I guys, and they were able to they wanted to leave, and we were able to get those two guys. I don't know how fortunate we're going to be moving forward, being able to do things like that. But again, when you talk about the recruiting piece, the local kids might know me, or the parents might know me, but some of the kids from away, they might not know me unless they do their homework, check the background. They'll get a feel for me if we can get them on a visit and they come into my office and they can see all the stuff that on the walls and trophies and pictures and that type of thing. But again, I stay away from myself. It's all about these kids nowadays. It's not about me. I mean, if they ask me questions, I have no problem commenting and sharing my story. But the biggest thing is taking what I've learned from people throughout my basketball journey and life journey in general, and sharing it with the group of guys, and just being honest. I think being honest is the main thing when I'm talking to parents. And I don't want to be that car salesman. I don't want to get a kid and try to use him. I mean, I don't want that. I want to educate him through the game of basketball. That's what's important for me.
Yeah, it's well said. And I know, obviously you guys got some good talent coming through. I'm sure you'll continue doing that too. But as we turn the page into, your last eight regular season games, I believe you have left. What are you looking for your guy from you guys here to round up the season and head into the WAC tournament?
Continue to get better. Like I said, they always say if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. You don't stay the same. That's what I've always been told. And again, there's some things that we have to get better at. Would love for the guys to understand my conversation a little more when we're going over things. But again, their eyes. They don't have the eyes that I have, and that's okay because they're still young. But the quicker I can get them there, the better we can be. And we're coming up on a stretch where we're going to play some. Everybody's good, but we're coming up on a stretch where we're going to play some good quality teams. And this one loss that we have, it could easily drop. Careful. So again, the quicker we can get there, the quicker they can understand, the quicker they can continue to grow and establish some type of identity as individuals and as a program. I like our chances going into the conference tournament. And I'm gonna stop there. I don't even want to put ourselves out front leading into the main tournament because again, we talk about conquering the mission first, and then hopefully we can reach the ultimate goal once all the missions have been accomplished. But again, we want to keep getting better every day and keep growing and keep implementing things and keep learning. And
back, Coach. I know we did that last interview without you. I know you had some family obligations to get to, but I do want to wrap up the show here with just a couple. We have some big matchups coming up this week, and I know we're not doing our Coach's Corner game of the week, but I do want to highlight a few games. I think starting on Wednesday, we're going to have a top 5 matchup with number 1 Grace traveling to Lucky Arena and having to play number 5 Indiana Wesleyan. Probably the game of the week if we were going to circle one. I mean, anytime you have a top 5 matchup, and Grace hitting the road at a very, very tough place to win within Lucky Arena. So, highlighting that one I think is a very good one. And I say some of these games that we have some other games. I want to put some emphasis on this, that some of these games, some of these teams are still fighting for. Some of these teams that are lower in the conference standings are still fighting for stuff because not everybody in every league is going to make a conference tournament. So, some of these teams, it's important for them to make the conference tournament. And so you're seeing a lot of fight from some of these teams that are in maybe 8, 9, 10 in a league, depending on the format of the conference tournament. So I when we highlighted some of the favorite teams that are best teams in the country, that's not to say that there aren't important games all throughout the NEI this week, because there are. And these games turn into, especially when you turn into February here, you have teams fighting for their life. So a lot of these games, you may start seeing we've seen plenty of upsets already, but you may even see some other upsets as teams are trying to fight for their season right here. So
a lot of fun matchups for sure. Like you said, in each league, even some of those teams, that are sitting in that 6 through 8, like on the arc line, for example, they can't afford. There's not a lot of margin right? They have to keep winning to play their way in, play their way out. So some of those top few teams in the Arcs, they're going to stay steady. They're not going to overreact to some losses. But if you're, sitting 5 through 9, 6 through 8, you got some work to do. Better figure it out.
Yeah, and you kind of wonder if I'm not saying they did, but maybe Roosevelt, big matchup on Wednesday as well, as they host Olivet Nazarene in a top 25 matchup. But Roosevelt coming off a loss to Calumet, you kind of wonder if they maybe were looking ahead to this ONU game, but should be a great game in the CCAC this week. The two top teams. You have some of the other teams that like San Xavier, they're climbing the ranks in the CCAC, but
Yep.
these two teams have been the two top teams for almost the entire season now, so it'll be a great matchup there. And then I know going through all the way through some of these schedules that I know that even on Thursday, right now the way that NAI set up, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday are always just loaded with games. So when you're starting to talk about some of these games coming up, they're on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturdays, what I call multi-screen game or screen days, where you're just throwing 3 or 4 screens up to watch most of these games. But I do want to highlight one game on Thursday from a little AMC. I know that they are probably a one-bid league, but as you have the teams fighting for them, you have Columbia traveling to Central Baptist, and right now the top 2 teams in that league going at it. Central Baptist is right now receiving votes, but as you're talking about teams fighting for positioning right now, I mean, those 2 teams maybe not getting an at-large from that league, so the auto bid is going to be important, but seeding is going to be important in that league. So trying to get that 1 seed and host in that league, you get a host every round of the tournament. So no neutral court game. So I think that game is very, very important for home to, you think that if you can host 3 games to win a conference tournament, you would be the favorite. So that game is important for seeding in that tournament or in that for that tournament, but coming up here too. And then you got some games I want to highlight here in the Frontier Conference, and I know we've talked a lot about Rocky, and they've been on the struggle bus a little bit, but you got a Carroll team out in the Frontier Conference that is playing really, really good basketball right now, and they travel to Montana Tech. The top 2 teams in that league will go battle too, and then I could mention probably 10 games on Saturday. We'll post some on the website and social media coming up, but at least that'll get you through some games through the week. But Coach, as we mentioned earlier already, I mean, these games, especially as you turn into February here, are getting more and more important for various reasons. Each league's a little bit different. Each team's a little bit different on what they're fighting for. But it's not just the top 25 teams that are battling out now that are fun. It's all the way across the board.
Yep, no doubt. And seasons are going to start ending here in a few weeks, right? I mean, it's going to be the end for some, and some are going to keep playing an extra 3-4 weeks. But Coach Moore's comment earlier was well taken, right? Like, I think he said 60 days left, no matter what, right? So if you're going to play to the end, you got 60 days left. Some teams only got about 30 days left. Yeah. So you got to. This is the time of year we're done talking about there's plenty of season left and this and that. You can't kick the can on that conversation anymore. Reality is starting to set in. Clarity is starting to get defined. There's still some dust to settle and fog to clear, but at the end of the day, this is the final push. We're rounding third and heading to home. The throw's coming, and we're gonna have a play at the plate here. So people got to keep playing and keep executing. Great time of year, just fun. If you're a basketball fan, it doesn't get much better than February and March. So it should be a lot of fun. Yeah,
no doubt. And we'll have everything covered. Make sure you tune in to www.naihoopsreport.com. We will obviously, it's Sunday before the top 25 comes out. So we'll have our top 25 out today. And once it airs, it'll be already out. But then we'll also have some bracketology stuff coming out this week as well. And some conference breakdown stuff, which will be fun to have as well. But until next time, this is Coach Ludberson Jr. signing off.